This baby elephant got twisted by a snake in the jungle. You won't believe who came to its rescue. The jungle was alive with sound. Birds chirped, monkeys screeched, and insects hummed in perfect disarray. Ethan stood quietly under the shadow of an ancient bebop tree, his camera resting against his chest. The humid air clung to his skin, but he didn't mind. He had grown used to the discomfort of the wilderness. That's what it took to witness and capture breathtaking moments. Ahead of him, a small herd of elephants moved gracefully, their large forms weaving through the dense foliage. Ethan adjusted his camera lens, focusing on the smallest one. The baby elephant moved clumsily, occasionally tripping on roots or veering too far from the group. It was a sight that made Ethan smile, reminding him of children exploring the world for the first time. The baby seemed to have spotted something interesting, a small clearing with a shallow pool, and trotted toward it. Ethan followed silently, taking care not to disturb the herd. He snapped photos of the baby splashing in the water, its joyous trumpets echoing softly. Just moments later, everything changed. The baby elephant suddenly stopped playing, its large ears flapping wildly as it let out a high-pitched trumpet. Its trunk began to sway back and forth, and it shifted its weight from one foot to the other, acting nervous and agitated. The jungle fell eerily silent, save for the soft rustle of leaves. Ethan froze, his instincts alerting him that something was wrong. He scanned the area carefully and noticed it, a slithering shadow moving stealthily toward the baby elephant. It wasn't just any snake. It was a python, a massive, muscular predator that could crush prey much larger than itself. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. The snake, nearly invisible against the dense greenery, moved with deadly precision, its eyes fixed on the unsuspecting baby. No, Ethan whispered to himself, gripping his camera tightly. He wanted to scream, to scare the baby elephant back to its herd, but he couldn't risk exposing his location. If the python noticed him, it might turn its attention his way. The snake struck with lightning speed. In one fluid motion, it wrapped its powerful body around the baby elephant, constricting it with terrifying force. The baby let out a heart-wrenching trumpet, its small body writhing in desperation. Ethan's hands trembled as he raised his camera, documenting the harrowing scene. He felt helpless, angered by his inability to intervene. He knew the laws of the wild. Interfering could put both him and the animals in greater danger. Still, it didn't make the scene any easier to watch. As the baby's cries grew weaker, Ethan felt a familiar ache in his chest. It wasn't just empathy for the struggling animal. It was grief, raw and unhealed. Ethan hadn't always been an adventurer. His early years were spent in a quiet, sheltered existence within the confines of a gated community. It was the kind of neighborhood where children played on perfectly maintained lawns, where every street was lined with identical houses, and where the chaos of the outside world felt like a distant myth. Ethan's parents, ever cautious and protective, rarely allowed him to step outside their carefully constructed bubble. They believed in safety above all else, and for them, that meant keeping Ethan close, away from anything unpredictable. As a child, Ethan found solace in books and video games, preferring the controlled escapism of fictional worlds to the unknowns of the real one. His days followed a predictable rhythm, and he grew into a quiet, introspective young man. Adventure was something he read about, not something he experienced. He had accepted that his life would be uneventful, a series of neatly planned days that rarely strayed from the familiar. Then he met Mel. Mel was a whirlwind of energy and curiosity, the complete opposite of everything Ethan had ever known. She was fearless, adventurous, and unapologetically alive, with a knack for pulling people out of their comfort zones. Ethan was captivated from the start. Their first date was a hike through a local nature reserve, an activity he'd agreed to only because he didn't want to disappoint her. By the end of the trek, he was sweaty, scratched up from brambles, and swarmed by mosquitoes. But he couldn't ignore the thrill that had sparked within him. Mel's enthusiasm was infectious, and for the first time, Ethan found himself wanting more. With Mel, the world opened up. She introduced him to the untamed beauty of the outdoors, guiding him through experiences he never thought he'd have. Together, they camped under vast, starlit skies, marveled at wildlife on African safaris, and trekked through jungles that pulsed with life and danger. Mel taught him to embrace the unpredictability of nature, to find beauty in its rawness, and to let go of the fear that had always held him back. Their adventures together felt endless, but their time was cruelly cut short. 2 years into their relationship, Mel began experiencing headaches and dizziness. The diagnosis, a brain tumor, came like a thunderclap, shattering their world. By the time the symptoms became severe enough to notice, the tumor had advanced too far. Surgery offered a fragile thread of hope, but complications arose, and Mel didn't survive. Ethan was devastated. Her death left a void that seemed impossible to fill. For months, he shut himself away in their home, surrounded by memories that only deepened his grief. He couldn't imagine stepping into the wilderness without her. The thought of exploring the places they had loved, places that had been brought to life by her presence, felt unbearable. It was one quiet afternoon, while sorting through Mel's belongings, that Ethan found her journal. The leather-bound book was filled with sketches, notes, and reflections from their travels together. Each page was a testament to her adventurous spirit and her deep love for the wild. As he flipped through it, Ethan felt a spark of something he hadn't felt in months: purpose. Mel's words seemed to urge him forward, as if she were reminding him that their adventures didn't have to end. Determined to honor her memory, Ethan made a promise to himself. He would continue their journey, not just for her, but for himself. He would see the world as she'd seen it, capturing its beauty and chaos through the lens of his camera. The decision wasn't easy, but it gave him direction, a reason to step out of the shadows of his grief. This trip to the jungle was part of that promise. It was meant to be a tribute to Mel, a way to keep her spirit alive in the places she loved. But now, as Ethan stood under the ancient baobab tree, watching the baby elephant struggle for its life, the weight of loss pressed down on him once more. The helplessness he felt mirrored the pain he'd endured when Mel slipped away. The jungle, for all its vibrancy and wonder, was also a stark reminder of life's fragility. And yet, Ethan stood rooted in place, his camera in hand. He knew Mel would have wanted him to see it all, the beauty and the tragedy, the triumph and the loss. As the scene unfolded before him, he silently resolved to keep going, to keep exploring, and to keep honoring the love that had forever changed him. A low rumble broke through Ethan's spiraling thoughts, dragging his attention back to the present. The ground beneath him began to vibrate, faint at first, then escalating into a rhythmic trembling that seemed to pulse through the air. His heart raced as he turned toward the source of the commotion, and his breath caught at what he saw: the baby elephant's mother, charging through the dense jungle like an unstoppable force of nature, coming to the rescue with the rest of the herd. The elephant's trumpets rang out, shattering the jungle's tense silence with a ferocious battle cry. The sound was deafening, an unmistakable warning that echoed far and wide, scattering birds from the treetops in frantic flurries. Dust billowed around them as their massive feet pounded the earth, creating a thundering rhythm that matched the surge of adrenaline coursing through Ethan's veins. The python, sensing the imminent danger, instinctively uncoiled its crushing grip on the baby elephant. Its powerful body twisted as it reared back, ready to strike or flee, but the advancing herd gave it no time to choose. The mother elephant was the first to reach it, and her response was immediate and brutal. With a thunderous swing of her trunk, she slammed into the snake's thick body, a blow so powerful that Ethan involuntarily flinched. The python writhed in agony, its muscular coils unraveling as it hissed and snapped at the air in a desperate attempt to fight back. But the mother elephant wasn't alone. The rest of the herd closed in, encircling the predator with a ferocity that left no room for escape. They acted as one, their trunks and tusks moving with relentless precision, each motion driven by instinct and fury. The ground trembled more violently as the herd began stomping on the python, their sheer weight and force overwhelming it with each crushing blow. Dust and broken foliage filled the air as the elephant's coordinated attack grew more intense. The snake's thrashing grew weaker, its movements slowing until finally it lay still, a lifeless, mangled heap on the jungle floor. The predator's reign of terror had ended, brought down by the indomitable strength of a mother's love and the unity of her herd. The jungle seemed to hold its breath as the mother elephant turned her full attention to her baby. She approached it carefully, her massive frame towering over the trembling calf. With a tender touch, she extended her trunk and nudged the baby gently. Ethan's chest tightened as he watched the baby respond with a soft, plaintive trumpet, its small body trembling but alive. The mother wrapped her trunk protectively around her calf, holding it close as if assuring it that the danger had passed. The rest of the herd gathered around them, creating a living shield of strength and solidarity. Slowly, the mother began to lead the baby away. The herd followed, their massive forms moving in unison as they retreated into the dense greenery. Ethan remained frozen, his camera hanging uselessly from his neck. He felt a mix of awe and reverence as he watched the elephants disappear into the jungle, their victory trumpets fading into the distance. The scene he had just witnessed felt surreal, a raw display of nature's power, resilience, and fierce maternal instinct. For a long time, Ethan stood rooted to the spot, unable to tear his eyes away from the python's lifeless body. The scene played over and over in his mind, vivid and raw like a sequence from a nature documentary. But it was more than just an extraordinary moment in the wild. There was something profoundly moving about it, something that struck a deeper chord within him. In the actions of the elephants, Ethan saw a powerful truth, the unmatched strength of unity. The baby elephant, left on its own, had been helpless, a vulnerable target, easy prey for the cunning predator. Yet when the herd rallied together, they transformed into an unstoppable force, using their shared strength and instinct to protect one of their own. It was a display of solidarity that was both ferocious and tender, a reminder that survival often depended not on the individual, but on the collective. The scene stirred a memory that Ethan had been carrying quietly in his heart. It reminded him of Mel, of the way she leaned on him and their circle of friends during her illness. She drew strength from the people who loved her, allowing their unwavering support to buoy her through the darkest days. Even as her health declined, she faced each challenge with a quiet grace that Ethan had always admired. She never let despair consume her, clinging instead to hope and the connections that gave her life meaning. Ethan felt a lump rise in his throat as tears blurred his vision. He wiped one from his cheek, his fingers brushing against the dampness as a wave of gratitude washed over him. He wasn't just grateful for the elephants, whose actions had reminded him of the resilience found in unity. He was grateful for Mel, grateful for the love they shared, for the lessons she taught him, and for the strength she showed even in the face of unimaginable adversity. Back at his campsite, Ethan settled into a worn camping chair, his laptop balanced on his knees. The jungle's distant hum provided a soothing backdrop as he began scrolling through the photos he'd captured that day. He uploaded the photos to his blog, his fingers hesitating for a moment over the keyboard as he searched for the right words to accompany them. Finally, he typed with care, pouring his emotions into the caption. Today I witnessed something extraordinary. A baby elephant, caught in the grip of a giant python, was saved by the bravery and unity of its herd. This was more than a fight for survival. It was a reminder of what we can achieve when we stand together. Satisfied, he clicked post and watched as the entry began to take on a life of its own. Within hours, notifications flooded his screen and the post went viral, spreading far beyond the small group of nature enthusiasts who usually followed his work. Thousands of people commented, sharing their thoughts and emotions. Some expressed awe at the raw beauty of the story, while others shared personal anecdotes about overcoming challenges with the support of loved ones. One comment in particular caught Ethan's attention. It was simple yet profound. Alone, we are vulnerable. Together, we are unstoppable. Thank you for sharing this powerful lesson. Ethan smiled faintly, the warmth of the words easing the ache he carried in his heart. He could almost hear Mel's voice, her excitement at the impact the story had made. She would have loved this, he thought. How the message of unity and strength had touched so many lives, just as she had touched his. In the weeks that followed, Ethan found himself filled with a renewed sense of purpose. He no longer saw his time in the jungle as a mere escape or personal journey. Instead, it became a mission to share the powerful lessons about the natural world. He was now driven by a deep desire to capture the raw beauty and unyielding spirit of nature. Thank you, Mel, for showing me what it means to live fully. I'll keep exploring, keep learning, and keep sharing the lessons you taught me. I'll carry your spirit with me always, he said one evening after capturing pictures of an orca.